over. People can ask questions, and I will give you the microphone so that we don't have a cordless one, yeah, Don? Okay, so we'll use these. So anyone want to start with the first question? Otherwise, I'm going to ask you guys questions. Any and everything. Yes, Brian. Okay, so I'll repeat the question for those who can't hear. The question is what is my position on local agriculture? And I guess it's kind of an open-ended question. I'll answer it this way. I'm very passionate about local ag. I come from an agricultural community, Waipahu and Hilo, where sugarcane was the crop that put many people to work, and that industry has died. And my concern is this: is that we have so much ag land that's sitting fallow that could be put to good use. So we need to do two things. One, we need to preserve it and leave it open. That is, again, why I'm passionate about rail, because it's development inside the urban buffer. So we leave our outlying lands open for ag in the future. And then it's two, is how do you get government to be more supportive of agriculture so we can compete with the mainland? Because right now, California can grow a tomato cheaper than we can. That doesn't mean we give up and say we're not going to grow tomatoes. What it means is we got to figure out how do we become more competitive. And how that happens is government needs to make sure that there's strong infrastructure systems, like for water. Without water, we have great lands, but it needs water. You add water, you get miracles. So we need to beef up our water infrastructure system that once was supported by our plantations. And then two, government needs to provide greater incentives through tax credits, through farm credit bureaus, and also through ag extension to help the farmers. The final one is land. As we all know, land is the most expensive commodity in our state and in our county, even more expensive here than the neighbor islands. So how do we make it affordable to farmers? I think part of that is working with the large landowners to allow farmers to come onto their property and lease their property for very reasonable prices that otherwise would regenerate no income. And I think government can help provide that incentive so that farmers can get back on the land at a reasonable price and grow the type of produce that we all need. Mapolo Farms is a prime example out in Waianae of just good ag getting better. It's healthier. A lot of times it's organic. It's ripened in the field, so it tastes better. And I'm passionate about it. And I think a mayor has a big role to play. It's not just a state issue, it's a county issue. So I appreciate that question. Thank you. Other questions or concerns or just complaints? Yes?
I have an office here, but I'm sure there are 2 or 3 parents who have children who want to go to the art field. Can you talk about art?
So the question is about people who support the arts and children who want to go into the arts and make money. It's interesting. I'm smiling because I'm thinking of our daughter Maya. Our daughter Maya is a really good artist. She really has talent. But I always tell her, Maya, don't make that your only profession because it's so hard to make a living as an artist. Start with another career and work on art until one supplants the other. But here's my point. Art is a great way to teach kids how to express themselves. It's how to use the left side of their brain. It's how to teach them to be more creative. And you find that good art programs in our public schools can make a huge difference. But what happens when the economy is tight? What's the first thing they cut? Art. They cut it out of the program. And it's really unfortunate. And if you talk to the great art teachers in our community, UH or in our public school system, they can't talk enough about the value of art in our schools. And I would support that even though it's a county, we're county, not state. I think there's ways we can do it through Summer Fund, which as you see, we're just going to raise the fee on Summer Fund. I wouldn't be doing that, by the way. It's one of the great programs. I went to Summer Fund. I had the blast. But through Summer Fund, you can get exposed to art. You can help your kids even do more than they would during the school year so they can learn to express themselves and be more creative, take risks and chances in the art field. So I think it's something that the city does have a role. And then, of course, they have all kinds of art competitions and exhibits at Honolulu Holly and also putting on competitions. We need to do that and reach out further into our community around the entire island with our young kids, some of who are sitting in this room tonight. I don't know if that answers your question, Helen, but thank you. Other questions? How about in the back? Yes?
What about the landfill, the trash, the dumpster? Do you have any alternate solutions to that?
So the question has to do with the landfill and the dumps. I assume you're talking about Waimalu Gulch landfill and then the decision first to locate the new landfill in Kailua and then saying, oh, we made a mistake, it's somewhere out in Kahuku, right? That issue. So I not always, I hold up my phone here and I say I have an app for that. Because think about it, what happened? The mayor appointed a commission who said, the mayor's urging, that we're going to do this by computer. We're going to put all the numbers in, we're going to factor a whole bunch of stuff, and then guess what? We're going to push a button and the machine is going to decide for us where the next landfill should go. They pushed the button and it said Kailua. And then it said, oh, wait, no, Kahuku. Yeah, I don't know if Kahuku is the right one either. But the point is this, garbage in, garbage out. Machines can't make decisions for people, particularly in an issue like this, that people need to be involved in the decision. And for me, it's always about the people, and they're helping make that decision. And wherever the landfill goes, there's going to be huge pushback. But Waianae, Nanakuli, Makaha, the Ewa end of the island has been taking a lot of what the rest of us don't want. We don't want the Camel Industrial Park in our neighborhood, it goes out there. We don't want the Kahi power plant in our neighborhood, it goes out there. We don't want the oil refineries in our neighborhood, it goes out there. We don't want H-Power in our neighborhood, it goes out there. We don't want the dump, it goes out there. How come everything goes out there? You gotta ask, right? And is that fair to that community? Now there could be some arguments why some of those things are there. But there's also a lot of reason to say that's not fair to that community. They've taken everything that the rest of this island does not want. And that means coming from my area, where I live, Manoa. If I said, let's put the dump in the back of Manoa Valley, people would go nuts. But we all have to share in the burden of living on a very small island. And we got to be sensitive to those who are carrying our burden. And so if it's decided somehow that the dump should remain out there, and I don't know at this point, I have no faith or trust in this committee, absolutely none. And I think the whole process has to be revisited. But it's going to stay there for at least 7 more years, because it takes 7 years to site a new landfill. We need to give the community of Waianae, Nanakuli, Makaha, Ewa, something in exchange. And that's a community benefits package. Maybe it's time that the people of that community get a nice district park, or a regional park. They get a ballpark, a football field, swimming pool, those kinds of things. Maybe it's time that the telephone lines along Farrington Highway go underground. So the next time you have a massive windstorm, they don't blow down across the road and everyone in that community is stuck. It's a health and safety issue. Maybe that happens. Maybe that community gets a second access road, which they've been begging for years and costs a lot of money. But just maybe, the rest of us need to step up and do that for the community because of what they're carrying for all of us. And I think if we do that, we start to address injustice. We start to say we all live on one island, one very small island, and we all need to care for each other. And that community, the community of Waianae, Nanakuli, Makaha, and Ewa have been carrying our burden. And we need to let them know that we appreciate it, we thank them, and that we're going to do something about it. When I'm mayor, I'm going to do something about it. So anyway, wanted to share that with you. I know we don't live out in that community, most of us, but we need to not forget that community. Yes?
It's fair to say that we probably have the worst roadways in the United States.
So the worst potholes in the United States, is that your question? Yeah. So people say our roads are kind of like third world country roads today. And that's not to say that it isn't a hard job making sure all our roads are paved. But here's the point. When I was at the city, I worked to expedite $155 million worth of repaving over a 18-month period. This is money that was funded, but that wasn't being put to work fast enough. And why did I want to expedite road repaving? Part of it is selfish, right? As a person managing the city, I wanted to say, look, I'm doing a good job for you by fixing your roads. But here are the other really major points to make, and there are two. When you start road repaving and you put more work out on the street, what happens? You create jobs, right? You create jobs and you flush money through our economic system, and that helps us climb out of the recession, which we still need to climb out of. We're climbing, but doing it sooner gets us climbing out faster. So we create good paying jobs for those who repave our roads. What's the other good reason? Our roads get repaved. And that's the job of the mayor, to make sure our roads are maintained and repaved. The current mayor says he's bending the debt curve by cutting back on road repaving. He's saving money for the rainy day. This is the rainy day. We need to pave more roads now, and when you do it now, what happens? Bids come in lower because people are hungry for the work. That's happening all over, in all kinds of projects. People are bidding lower because they need and they're hungry for the work. And if they bid lower, what does that mean? We have more money to do more road repaving. So this is the very time to road repave, not later when the economy is hot and prices are higher. It's to do it now when the economy is slow and we have better roads. I want to be mayor because I want to expedite road repaving. Not just filling potholes that have to be refilled over and over and over every time it rains, but actually repaving roads, scraping them down, repaving, and then with roads that are not totally bad yet, that are cracked, doing a thing called slurry seal, which is a fine coat of tar and sand mixed together. You spray it, it's like a paint. Dries within an hour of you putting it on the road. It gives about 5 more years of life to your roads. That's smart thinking. That's saving money for all of us so we can get more life out of our roads and pave the ones that we really need to repave. So it's a good question. I find it really frustrating that the city currently is cutting back when I think they should be going forward even faster. And we all suffer. Our cars get damaged, we drive slower, and the roads get worse, by the way, and it costs even more later to fix them if we don't fix them sooner. So I appreciate that question. Thank you. Yes? How are we going to deal with the homeless? A couple points. One, it is a hugely complicated problem, and there's no one solution. And any mayor who tells you I can solve the homeless problem isn't telling you the truth. But I think you would tackle the homeless problem from a menu of different items that you pick from. And you do it with compassion. You know, we don't like homeless. You know, they don't look real nice. They smell at times. But you know, about 1/3 of all the homeless are veterans. So when you see someone lying in the street and they're all bust up, think about maybe they went to Iraq. Maybe they went to Afghanistan. Maybe they went to Iran. Not Iran. Maybe they went to some of the other Middle East countries. And they signed up again for a 2nd and 3rd tour of duty. And when they came home, they were broken on the inside. And they couldn't fit into our community. But they're here, and they're in our streets. So I'm just saying, remind yourself and approach the problem with compassion. But having said that, part of the issue is making it less convenient for them to camp on sidewalks and in parks. And when I was at the city, we passed one bill that banned camping in most parks, having a tent. And then I worked on another one that only passed after I left. Tulsi Gabbard Tamayo got it passed, banning tents on sidewalks. And that's starting to make a difference. But what's good about the bill is, these bills, is that by making it less convenient to camp, and if you work with the providers like IHS, and they go to the homeless and say, well, you have a place to come and stay, we'll get more of these people into these provider shelters, and then they can be worked with. They don't like to go because there's rules, right? In a shelter, there's rules. No alcohol, no drugs. They want to have alcohol, they want to have drugs. So you make it less convenient, you have the greater success. But you also have the chronically homeless. Those are the guys who are addicted to drugs and alcohol or have mental illness. And the only way we're going to work with those is by creating a housing first model, which is you bring these groups of people into programs with their drugs and alcohol. And the providers are there to work with them to get them weaned off and then get them back on their feet. And I support safe zones.
The concept is you create an area on government land away from other businesses or homes, and there are areas that we own, the city owns, not near housing or businesses, and you put in basic infrastructure, bathrooms, washrooms, and they can camp in these areas. And then you work with a provider to work with the people in these safe zones to get them back on their feet, to get them jobs, to get them the help they need to get back into the community. So these are some of the ways we deal with it. But what's the number one reason how do we solve the homeless problem? Ask any provider, anywhere, and they'll tell you this one answer: affordable housing. Our housing is totally unaffordable for even us who make a good living. So we need to do a better job of providing truly affordable housing for those who are really, at the very bottom of the rung. And that means housing that's worth $100,000, rental housing that's, a couple $100 or less. And that can be done, by the way, by building in the urban core around transit centers, where people don't need to buy cars because they can travel by rail or bus. I apologize for the length of my answer, but I wanted to give it a lot of, different levels. And I hope I answered your question as best possible. And I'm open always for more solutions. I think there's many out there.
Other questions on different issues? Yes, in the back. So the question is, with the closing of the two hospitals on the west side, and the access to health care has really diminished for people out west again. And by the way, west side, I want to be your mayor on your side. And they don't have people, the west side folks don't have a mayor who spoke for them for many, many years. And it is a tragedy what's happened. Here's a little bit of good news. I think you're going to see Queens or some other hospital stepping up and taking over the hospital that shut down. Queens. So Eliza says, Queens, you got the inside scoop, huh? Good. And I've heard that too. And Queens is a great delivery of health systems. So pretty soon I think you're going to be hearing some good news about the hospital reopening. And I think you're going to see great health care provided. That's not good enough. The other thing though, Waianae Comprehensive Health Center, have you guys gone to that health center? It's unbelievable what they do in that community. And they do it totally supported by the community, and they do it in a way that is very, what do I want to say, grounded in the way all things Hawaiian. It's a powerful place if you go there. And I like the kind of delivery and how they deliver through healthcare. But here's the other part that I think, and maybe some of the firefighters would weigh in, but I am supportive of a merger of the firefighters with EMS, the ambulances. With the shutting of the hospital, we do have a problem. Because right now, you need to come much further to get to a hospital. And that means the ambulances or the fire trucks need to get to you. And you need the right kind of provider to get to your home, depending on the kind of problem you have. On the Big Island where I grew up, we had fire and rescue. It was a one-stop operation. And depending on the kind of call, you got the delivery that you needed. And I believe there's economies of scale by combining the two. The firefighters have a great training program. The firefighters have probably the best equipment. And the firefighters working with EMS, I think, could better train both entities so that they can even deliver better medical service, quicker and faster. You know why? There are fire stations all around this island. Are there EMS stations all around this island? No. There's about half as many as there are fire stations. So I think linking in with the firefighters means you're going to have EMS closer to where you live in your homes. So your grandma or grandpa or auntie or uncle or your husband or wife or child will get more rapid delivery of health care and the right kind. Now Peter Caldwell and I disagree with that. He's going slow, he wants to study it again. It was studied when I was there. And the recommendation was to merge them. And the city even paid a study of $140,000 that recommended the merger.
Now EMS is pushing back, particularly the head of EMS. Why? He's going to lose his job in the merger. So of course he's against it. But this is not about one job. This is about health and safety. The thing I talked about in the very beginning regarding our men and women in blue and our firefighters. And so I think there's some good news on the horizon. When I become mayor, I'm going to work on a merger, and I think that's going to help your delivery. And by then I think you're going to see Queens out there reopening the hospital and providing the legacy that Queen Emma started 150 years ago for the people of Hawaii. Okay? Yes? Oh, and here's something good. This is Clarice Hashimoto. She was one of your representatives out here ages ago, still a young woman. And she told me that the ledge appropriated $1 million for additional ambulance service this session. So you're getting beefed up service because of the shutdown of the hospital. So your representatives in your area heard you, probably, and they fought to get you this money, which I think will make a difference. So that's on the west side, right? Okay, thank you.
TRIPA also is going to have trauma doctors in another 2 or 3 years for the public. You go up there and use that hospital. It's a beautiful hospital. So let them know.
Okay. So Liza is saying also Tripler is going to get more trauma doctors up at their facility. Then we can all use them. You don't have to be military to go up there?
No.
Okay.
In 2 or 3 years.
But 2 or 3 years from now.
They're going to open for the public.
Okay. Are you a nurse?
No.
Physician?
I listen to all the good movies and the news.
She listens to the news. She's an informed citizen. This is Eliza here. Let's give her a round of applause. Eliza. So let's hope that happens sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions? How about in the back of the room?
And let
Is that-
everybody know the trauma doctors are only at Kokini and Queens.
Okay.
And if they're not sick, they tell them leave. And then they have nurses in Pearl City. You can go see them 24/7.
Okay.
They'll take any patient if the doctors are closed down. So find out with your doctor in case emergency. I can't get inside emergency. The nurses will write your prescription, everything.
Okay.
My daughter is a master of nursing, and my son-in-law is a federal fireman.
Thanks, Eliza.
So
You
let
just-
them know.
Okay. I'll take some more questions first. One thing I wanted to point out, I think, is that Heather Junie in the back of the room? Heather, can you stand up? She's your representative out here, Heather Junie. Then give her a round of applause. Heather Junie's father, Henry Junie, was a police officer. Police officer or sheriff? Police officer, right? And then he became the police officer for the United States Senate. He was a sergeant at arms. That means you're in charge of all the police for the Senate in the nation's capital. He had the ability to arrest a senator. He probably could have arrested the president even. And this was a Hawaiian man who came from this community and went to Washington, D.C. with Senator Inouye when he got elected and rose to the highest levels of power in our government. And I mean, I think it speaks volumes. We should be so proud that a local boy, guys may not know about Henry, but he was an amazing man. He would have taken a bullet for the senator, I know that much. But he in his own right then went on to become the sergeant at arms. The first and only Native Hawaiian, maybe the first and only non-white guy. Yeah, Heather, what do you think? Probably the only non-white guy ever in the history of the United States Senate. So I just wanted to recognize Heather. She was appointed by Neil Abercrombie. She's running for re-election. She's a good lady. You should, yeah. Any other questions? And then I thought I was going to ask, I know tonight we have Tanari Mahafala, who's the head of the police officers union. Maybe he'd like to say a few words. I'd be honored. And if someone from the firefighters would like to say a few words, I'd be honored too. But maybe take a few more questions and they can talk and we'll go back to a few more questions. It's a little after 7:20 and hey, we maybe go to around 8, but you guys get hungry, come over and get more food. You know, make it local style. Get up, walk around, get your food, sit back down. Yes, Will.
Can you reassure us that you have made a difficult decision in your lifetime?
So Ben Kaitana likes to tell me, hey Caldwell, you never made a difficult decision in your life. And I respond this way. Have any of you made a difficult decision in your life? Every one of you has made a difficult decision in your life. Life is hard. And we've all made difficult decisions.
And who is Ben Cayetano to think he is the only guy who made a difficult decision because he was governor? No doubt, being governor is hard. No doubt, you make decisions that affect all of us. But to somehow think that you made harder decisions to any of us, and we can all tell our stories, our individual stories of hard decisions made that are as compelling as his. And I think it speaks to a certain level of arrogance and ego that I do not want to have in my campaign or as mayor. I think it's about treating everyone equally and recognizing everyone has a hard life and makes difficult decisions. Okay, now having said that, thank you. Having said that, Ben has made decisions that I think aren't very good. He rated the ERS of $400 million, and today there's a huge deficit, and this legislature was dealing with it. Just one of many, many decisions. Making a difficult decision does not mean making a good decision. And there is a difference that I think Ben needs to realize. But I don't want to be negative tonight. But I appreciate the question because you're going to hear it over and over. You're going to hear that, hey, Caldwell is too nice of a guy. What I say is, in the communities I grew up, treating each other with dignity and respect was the best way to live. And in a small island community like ours, if we don't do it that way, it's pretty hard to live here. We can't be like New Yorkers. As much as I love New Yorkers, it'd be hard if we all turned like New Yorkers and were in each other's face every day. How could we have our kids go out with each other? How could we go to the supermarkets and go to schools where our kids are playing together if we're burning bridges left and right? So I treat people with respect, but I'm not afraid of hard decisions. I didn't run from rail, I ran to rail. And it's hard to support rail, because you got to get people to believe in something that is scary. It's easier to say no. Why? All you got to do is say no. It's harder to say yes, and this is why you should support it. So that is, I think, you know, the fact that I'm a nice guy, I don't look as a negative. I look at it as a positive, to work together to manage to solve our problems. Not to fight, not to blame, not to name call. And it is interesting, you know, before the first debate, we went in to pull straws. And Ben was across the table from me, and he pointed his finger at me and said, Kirk, don't take anything I say tonight personally. And then he proceeded to make everything personal, and to take everything personally himself. And what I learned is when people say things like that, they're actually taking it, they're thinking they're going to take everything personally. And we're all human. I understand Ben. You know, we're all human, but I think it's better to work towards being a better human. Tanari knows about that.